Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Well, Ed Burns is here today, and this is very thrilling for me because shamelessly 2 years pursuing you via email and through your business partner to get you to come on the show. So
and here we are, finally.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I should tell you that, I really went into film and television myself because of you, because I saw Brothers McMullen, and I was living in New York, and I read that you had a job as a PA at Entertainment Tonight. I was working the overnight shift at Extra as a PA.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, if he can go make a movie and work this, I can do this too.
Yeah.
So I went out to our family's house in Sag Harbor, and I made a little documentary with all my girlfriends from college and high school, and sort of that got me my love of film, and everything really began with you.
That is a pretty cool story.
So you're my mentor from afar. Speaking of Brothers McMullen, I'm curious, the market for indie films has changed so dramatically, and you've really been at the forefront of it. Do you think a movie like The Brothers McMullen could, even get made and released in the indie market today? And what do you attribute the success and the attention that film garnered at the time, for someone like you, who really just came on the scene, no one knew who you were?
And he's protected by his all-important shield. But when a woman comes along, she sees this bright beast and she wants it.
Come on, Jack. Kiss me.
But she's not happy with it the way it is.
Ooh, I remember the days when you used to say, "I'll never be too tired for sex."
So she starts to peel away the all-important shield. First, she wants to see your romantic side.
You've never been in love, have you?
Then
I think, yes, it absolutely could get made today. It's much easier to make micro-budget indie films today than it was back when I made that movie in 93, 94. One is just, if you look at the digital cameras that are available to kids coming out of film school today, that are on the very, let's say, inexpensive side by comparison to film cameras, like the Canon 5D, which is, $3,000, or the Red. You can get your hands on these cameras, and you no longer have the excuse of, I made my micro-budget movie, it looks like crap, but pay attention to the acting and story. Back then we had to shoot on, I shot mine on a CP16, and you had to try and find these 16 millimeter cameras that were available. Mm-hmm. Then I had to put myself back in school in order to get the student discount to buy recanned film stock. And basically the recanned stock that you got was left over from commercials and music videos. So half of the footage, I shouldn't say half, but there were certain cans of film that after we got it developed, we got it back from the lab, there was no image there because that film had already been exposed. The camera assistant who recanned the stock at the end of the music video exposed that roll of film to light. So we had those obstacles. The one thing is you had to pay for your film to get developed. Mm-hmm. So on McMullen, we raised money, we got the film stock, we got the camera, we shot for a week, we then dropped the film off at the lab. We have to make a decision. Do we take the next chunk of change we get and do we shoot some more? Or do we pay to get the film out of the lab to see what we have? We decided to shoot. And then also, back then, you could not cut a film on Final Cut in your apartment.
Were you surprised that people, when you put it out there finally, were you surprised that it got as much attention as it did?
Shocked. My whole idea with that film was I had written 7 screenplays from the time I got out of film school to deciding to make McMullen. I sent them out to Hollywood hoping to get an agent. And the whole catch-22, you can't get an agent unless you've sold the script, you can't sell a script unless you have an agent. Well, needless to say, I couldn't sell any of these scripts and I couldn't get an agent. So when I made McMullen, my sole intention was I just wanted to get an agent. I was like, we can get to a film festival and someone can see that I can write and I can know how, I know how to make a film for $25,000. Mm-hmm. So when the film ended up turning into what it turned into, obviously that was a major, major surprise.
You then released Purple Violets, and I remember when you did this, and to my knowledge, you were the first person, but you released it exclusively on iTunes,
Yeah.
and now this is something that it's sort of trendy and hip to do it, the success of a movie like Bachelorette, but when you did it, you were sort of the first.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go that route, and was it a profitable and wise decision looking back on it?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of good stories connected to Purple Violets. It was the first film ever offered exclusively on iTunes. When we did the press for the film back then in '07, I'd say easily 80% of the journalists that we sat down with said, you're crazy. No one is ever going to watch a movie on their computer, let alone like their phone. And that's 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's how far we've come. The reason we did it was, and it goes back to sort of talking about the landscape of indie film back with Brothers McMullen and how it changed in those sort of 15 years. Basically what happened was indie film got very popular. A bunch of the studios then started independent labels like Warner Brothers and Paramount and Fox Searchlight. And you had a number of art house theaters opening up around the country, or sort of more mainstream theaters started to also play art house films. Then in around '05, and people have different theories as to why. Some people think, well, back in '95 when Brothers McMullen comes out on a Tuesday, you were either going to stay in and watch Friends, or you could go out to the theater. You did not have HBO's great original programming. Mm-hmm. There was no such thing as on demand. So if you missed Mad Men, you could get it on a Tuesday night. There was no such thing as social media, Facebook, mm-hmm. iTunes. Nobody was gaming the way they are. So all of a sudden, 15 years later, there's all these other things competing for our attention. So what happened to the indie film business was attendance dropped dramatically at those theaters. A lot of the companies like Picture House, Warner Brothers Independent went out of business. A lot of the indie theaters went out of business. I was just home on Long Island, and two theaters between my parents' house and the house I grew up in that played Brothers McMullen. Mm-hmm. All right, this is on a 12-mile stretch on Sunrise Highway. Both theaters are out of business. Right. So that's indicative of what happened theatrically to these movies. The other thing that would happen is when you would release your film, traditionally you would do a platform release. So we're going to open up in New York and LA, mm-hmm. and then we hope that we do well there so that it warrants the next 5 markets. Right. If you do well there, then maybe you can get to 20 markets. And
you thought if it's iTunes, it's everybody. I mean, it made sense intellectually, but I wonder, I'm sure it was shot for not a ton of money, but did you make back?
So that one, no, we did not make the money back. Well, that was a $4 million movie. Mm. But what we did discover was there was a real number to be made from just iTunes. So the next film we made was this movie called Nice Guy Johnny, and we made that film for $125,000. Basically knowing if we made it for $125,000, if we have iTunes alone, we can probably double our investment.
And did you?
And we did, yeah.
Well, how, at the time, I'm curious because...
Oh, that's also, the other thing that had happened was then VOD also entered,
and you did that one with VOD.
Yeah.
Selma Blair, Patrick Wilson, you had stars in Purple Violets. How did they feel at the time? Because there's a cachet to being a theatrical release. Did you run it by them? Were they cool with it?
No, we didn't run it by them. Or I shouldn't say we didn't run it by them. We kind of told them what we were doing. And, every actor who has the kind of careers that they have, where you're going to see them in sort of a big budget studio movie, mm-hmm. but they're also the actors that love to jump in and do smaller independent films. We're all in the same game, and we're all well aware of what's happening in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So we all have titles that we thought, wait a second, that was a great movie. Why didn't that expand beyond New York and LA?
Right.
Or why back then, why did that just go to DVD? Mm-hmm. And everyone recognizes, a lot of times it doesn't have to do with the quality of the movie. Sometimes it could just do with, what the distributions would say, like the playability of the movie. Mm-hmm. So everyone was just kind of, hey, this is a new revenue stream, but more importantly, a chance to reach a much wider audience. So everybody was game.
You're sort of known for a specific kind of film a little bit. You do these indie family relationship dramedies. I'm curious if someone like Jon Favreau, who got a similar start with made his own movies, a movie like Swingers, and then went on to do Iron Man. Did you get those blockbuster studio film offers, and is there a reason you sort of have stayed in this genre that you seem comfortable with? But I feel like I'm sure you could have done a big studio film.
No, I never got the big studio offer for sort of a special effects kind of movie. I definitely had lots of conversations about directing sort of a studio romantic comedy. And I never really engaged in the conversation in any real way. And the reason is, when I was a kid in film school and I was falling in love with movies, I was falling in love with these small character-driven personal films. Like the dream was you wanted to be, Woody Allen or Truffaut or Antonioni. So once I got to the place where it's like, all right, I'm in the business and I have a career, I didn't want to give up the dream. Dream was make personal films. You can make a lot more money had I pursued, let's say, something else. But I didn't really dig those movies as a kid. I can't imagine I would do a good job with one now as a filmmaker.
You also cast a lot of unknowns, and the longer, the more successful you've been in your career, even with a movie like Nice Guy Johnny, Newlyweds, is there a reason, when you clearly could get names, which would probably bring more eyeballs to the film, is there a reason you choose to work with a lot of unknown talent?
When we were making Nice Guy Johnny, we had this idea, like a plan, that we were going to try and replicate the Brothers McMullen model. So we listed everything that we had in that film. So it was shot in 12 days, in the can for $25,000, shooting only in free locations, and working with unknowns, and also a 3-man crew. So that was sort of like, like Dogma 95, our lists of rules. Those were the rules that we set up for ourselves on Nice Guy Johnny, and a great thing happened. We found these 3 actors, Anna Wood, Matt Bush, Carrie Bechet, all kids who, were in New York. I think Anna and Carrie really hadn't done any film work before. And a magical thing happened on set. They loved being there. They weren't there because of a paycheck. They weren't asking, when do we get out of lunch, or can I have that day off because I have tickets to the theater? And the other thing is we're asking the actors to do their own hair and makeup and wear their own clothes. And it reinvigorated, our tiny crew, all of us who work on big movies.
Right.
But it totally recharged me as an actor because, you work with these kids. They don't know if they're going to get another shot to do this. So they are there for one reason, to do the work, and they love it the way you can only love it when you're 22. So after that experience, we were like, well, let's do it again on Newlyweds. And we went to our same casting director, Mary Beth Fox, and we said, all right, we need to find another great actress, and we found Caitlin Fitzgerald for that film.
Yeah, and you do buy it because they are unknowns, and it is very hard to go to a film anymore and not come in with your ideas about who that person is. So your movies do that. My co-host Lon is not here today, but he did send me a question that he wanted me to ask you. Okay. It was about Sound of Thunder, and he said that he wondered if the negative response to that film, affected you personally, and did you know, these are his words, when you were filming it, did you have any sense that this was going to be like an ill-fated project?
What did you change?
We don't know.
Once it was our world.
What was that?
Now it's theirs.
Okay, yeah, I know. I mean, I got some good stories. On paper, Sound of Thunder looked like a safe bet. I don't know that anybody thought it was ever going to be a great movie. But you had Ben Kingsley, the Bradbury short story. The script was pretty good. And it was going to be, a very large paycheck for me. The biggest one that I had ever gotten before and since.
This is a good
so
career move for you.
You get this offer. I'm like,
you got
hey,
kids, this is fine.
You're turning the page and saying, I can do this. I can do this. And when we, and we have Ben Kingsley. I don't know if I mentioned that. We have Sir Ben is in the movie. We show up to Prague, and you're going to spend a summer in Prague. So everything was pretty cool about the project. show up there, first day on the set, walked onto the set, and you just kind of looked around, and you could see that they clearly did not have the money that we sort of thought we had. And that was a tough shoot. There were
So
two
you
strikes.
knew doing it.
Oh yeah, you knew immediately. I mean, there were 2 strikes. The crew stopped working on 2 different occasions because they didn't get paid. You know, so it just became okay, when do we wrap this thing? And
Like, this
if
could
we're
be a shit
lucky,
show.
maybe it never comes out.
Well, this is what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the movie was actually released unfinished, and it was special effects heavy, and so
It was
is that
supposed to have a
true?
ton of special effects. I've never seen the finished film. All I know is the effects that I saw looked unfinished.
Rough. Okay. Enough said. Connie, who I
And you know, it's not. There are people that actually like that movie.
it's campy and
I
it's got
mean,
its sort of a fun way, but
yeah.
you know, it is interesting to know sometimes you get
Wow.
released, you're like shocked, but you had a sense.
Yeah.
Connie Britton, I think, owes her career to you and has gone on to such success from Spin City to American Horror Story and Friday Night Lights, and now she's got a new show, Nashville. I remember her telling me a very funny story about her audition for Brothers McMullen that involved like showing up with a suitcase, like going to her sister's house or something. Do you recall her audition?
I think she auditioned at my dad's office in Manhattan. I mean, I just ran into Ed Norton, who tells a very funny story about Connie and that audition. You know, they were friends, and Connie, I guess, was, you know, we just put an ad in Backstage magazine that said, you know, non-union movie looking for actors, you know, no pay, but we'll feed you. And I think she was on the fence about whether or not going to this audition. It's this kid, he hasn't really done anything. And Ed said that he told her, he says, look, this is what we do. You know, like, you got to gamble on this. Just, you know, just go to the audition.
Right.
You may as well. So Connie goes to the audition, and obviously, you know, I love her. She gets the part. McMullen turns into what it turns into. 3 years later, Connie goes in to read for a movie, and she doesn't get the part, but there's a part of the kid in it, and she tells Ed, hey, you should go in and read for this movie, Primal Fear. Tell your agents to check it out. And Ed obviously told his agents, got the part. So they were sort of responsible for kind of helping.
Mitzvah. I love it. Very nice. And she's reuniting with Mike McGlone in your next film, the Fitzgerald Family Christmas.
Be there. Does he? This is a guy who walked out on his family. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, you know?
Have your brothers and sisters figure it out for themselves?
I know he hurt you, but he's still our father.
An angel just got their wings.
None for you, though, Pops.
Guess there's nothing else to say.
Can we forgive our father just one day? Just one normal Christmas?
I had no intention of breaking his family up. What I wanted to do was pull you all together.
When he walked out on this family 20 years ago, I told him he would never set foot in my house again, and I am sticking to it.
Yeah, so this is, I had a couple of things, I guess, that I had been playing with over the years. I did have an idea of a movie about a guy who had to take over his father's bar and ended up having to sort of become a patriarch to some of his siblings. I had another idea about, I have a friend who's one of 9 and another friend who's one of 12.
Catholic families.
Yeah, big Catholic families. And they always talked about the insanity of growing up in those kind of homes, but also about within a family of 9 kids, the different factions, the 3 oldest ones, the 3 middle, then 2 and 2, and how they all had very different relationships and perceptions of their parents. Because, you know, the parents who bring in kids when they're 20 years old and are struggling to make ends meet and, let's say, don't have an education are very different from the parents who are 42 years old and, you know, their business got up on its feet and they got educated and maybe they stopped drinking. So those kids might think about the parents very differently. So that was in my head as I was sort of mapping out the world. And what I ended up with was a story of 7 adult siblings who have to deal with the fact that their father that walked out on the family 20 years earlier is back and he'd like to spend Christmas with them. The 3 oldest kids really don't have a problem with that because they were already off in college when he's left. The 3 youngest kids hate his guts, want nothing to do with him because, you know, they were in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade when he left and they have no relationship with him. Then there's a daughter in the middle played by Heather Burns who sort of has idolized the father and has been sort of taking care of him. And of course, the mother as well wants nothing to do with him. So it's sort of the 3 days leading up to Christmas, and I had to make a decision during the writing. I was like, all right, so do I want to do like a Christmas movie like Love Actually, which is, you know, fun and romantic and maybe more kind of like tonally She's the One or even Brothers McMullen?
Right.
Or did I want to go after what my favorite Christmas movie is, It's a Wonderful Life, where, you know, there's a lot of rocky ground you got to go over before you get to.
Like The Family Stone, which was a holiday movie, which I loved. That was like a little, had the fun and the serious. I mean,
I don't remember that one.
Sarah Jessica Parker, Luke Wilson.
I think I definitely saw it. I think I don't remember the sort of specifics of it.
You don't see 12 movies a week like me? What's wrong with you? So you went more the serious side.
We went more the serious because I should say it's not even more the serious, the more emotional route.
Okay.
You know, it's like there's tough stuff that the family has to get through, and not all of it. I mean, there's plenty of laughs in the movie, but in order to get to sort of the big, you have to earn the heartfelt tears that we deliver at the end of the movie.
Who plays the dad?
So Dad is a great actor named Ed Lauder. That he's a Long Island guy. The minute you see his face, you'll be like, oh, of course I know who that guy is. He's got like 82 movies on his resume.
And will this get the digital platform release?
So the release, we're going out with Tribeca Films, which released Newlyweds. So it comes out digitally on November 21st.
Okay.
But we're also going to add a smaller theatrical release December 7th, I think, in New York, and the 14th select markets. And we're doing that, we're augmenting the digital because we're the only film coming out, we're the only Christmas-themed film coming out this holiday season. So we thought, well, why not take advantage of that? Because there are some people who haven't adopted the digital technology.
True, but I mean, I commend you on so many levels, but I hope you feel proud of the fact that you really did get that all started. I mean, I remember when Purple Violets went out that way and no one was doing it, and so, kudos to you.
Well, the next one, I think the future, well, thank you very much, by the way. I think the future is the direct-to-consumer. I think
Meaning what, you're going to come perform the movie in my apartment?
No, I think what we're going to do is we have this next project, it's called Winter, Spring, Summer, Fall. And we're going to shoot 12 short films, but a continuous story. Each film is 7 minutes long, and we'll shoot it, cut it, and then post it online in January. It'll start in January.
Right.
So you'll get one a month over the course of 12 months, but we'll sell it kind of like Louis C.K., directly to the consumer. So, for 99 cents or 79 cents, we don't know what the price point would be yet.
You're not relying on a release.
And all because of what I saw Louis C.K. did. Because it was like, wait a second, you cut out the middleman, you cut out the distribution partner, so there immediately your distribution fee, you don't have to give up, which can be as high as 55%. Then you think about if you're going theatrical, the theater takes 50%. So if you're the guy who invested in the movie or the producers of the movie, sometimes you end up with, nada. So we think this is
the love of the arts.
Well, now you can. I mean, it's the first time back to, sort of how you make independent movies now. You can make them so inexpensively that it no longer has to be sort of a capitalistic enterprise. You can just make your art, if you will, for the same reason that the painter is motivated to do it, or the poet or the songwriter, Costs nothing to pick up the guitar and go.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I will be seeing Fitzgerald Family Christmas the day it comes out.
Cool. Thank you.
Mr. Burns, an honor. Thank you. Please come back anytime. And that's our show, guys, and we'll see you next time.